Antennas. What are they and what are they used for? I don't think anybody in the entire amateur radio community quite understands what antennas are for. I think they are purely just decorations to make your radio look fancier and to stand out from other radio operators. But in all seriousness, antennas are probably one of the most important parts of your radio. Everybody looks at all these cheap Chinese radios and they complain that, oh, this Baofeng says it's 10 watts, but when I put it on the meter, it's only 7. It doesn't matter. As long as it makes 5 watts, it makes 5 watts, and it's good enough. Because the way it works is you only get 3 more decibels of power output, or whatever you want to call it, every time you double the wattage. So the difference between 5 watts and 10 watts is only 3 decibels. What you should be worried about is your antenna. And most of your Chinese radios come with really crappy antennas like this one. This is one of the stock Baofeng antennas that you usually get. A little flexible. I think it's based off of the Abri 701 or something like that. I've never bought an Abri 701, so I don't know what to compare it to. But this is usually what they come with. And then, if you buy one of the multi-packs... Oop, almost lost everything. Where is it? I'm going to move this before I break it. You buy one of their multi-packs, you get one of these. Or did I call this a Bree 701? I meant Nagoya. This is, I believe it's a real Abri 771. It's basically a knockoff of the Nagoya 771. And whoever actually makes this, I don't know if Abri actually makes it or not. They are also the same company that makes the fake Nagoyas because they have the exact same base, the exact same font, the exact same color. It just says Nagoya. And I just included this one because it's apparently the same antenna, but the font is different. I don't know what's going on there. We'll test that in a future video. But your antenna is important because it takes your output and whatever the dB gain is, the real dB gain, not just what they advertise. Because some of them claim that an HT antenna has like 9 dB gain, which is almost impossible. That's like Yagi territory. It multiplies the power of your radio essentially in layman's terms. So if your antenna has a realistic 3 dB gain, like a real Nagoya 771, what that means is you're turning your 5 watt radio into essentially a 10 watt radio with just the antenna upgrade. And no matter what radio you buy, unless you're buying like a high-end radio like ICOM, Yaesu, or Kenwood, it's gonna come with a really bad antenna. And the first thing you should do is spend $30 on your antenna. If you don't know what you want, and you just want an antenna that's somewhat compact, somewhat convenient, doesn't get in the way, and then it gives you somewhat of a benefit, I would say the Signal Stick. Now, this is not the best antenna by any means, but it is the most perfectly balanced antenna in my opinion. This is the glow-in-the-dark version. All the other ones have a black base. They come with the glow-in-the-dark tip, and this green part is lightly glow-in-the-dark, which is why it's not on the radio right now, because I thought it was neat at first, and then I realized I don't really like the color green, and it doesn't glow that well. This was for my AR152, and I have a brown one on the way, so it matches. Also, a lot of your antennas that come with the radio are not tuned right. As far as I can tell, these Abri 771s are pretty good. When I hook them up to VNA, my light VNA, they're really good antennas. So I would still recommend these. I would honestly say get the Nagoya 771. From what I've found, BTech, which is an American company that sells Chinese products, they are the most reliable importer of Nagoya, because the way Nagoya works is they're a Taiwan company, and they sell antennas in bulk. They're not really interested in selling individual products. So what BTech does is they buy them in bulk, the real official ones, and then they distribute them on Amazon or their own website. There's a lot of other Amazon listings that will sell you this antenna, and it'll either say it's Nagoya or even have the same color and font and shape, and it'll just say Nagoya, like a really bad knockoff. So if you get it through BTech, you're going to get a real one. When it comes to GMRS, from my experience, is every GMRS antenna sucks, except this one, the Nagoya 771G. I don't actually have a regular 771, but I do have two 771Gs, because this is the only GMRS antenna I've found that is actually tuned to GMRS. Everything else you buy that comes with a GMRS radio usually default comes with something like this. And then if you look down inside the base, I can't even see it myself. See how close I can focus. Of course, there's no light up here. It's got that font down in the base. And if you read it, it gives you a really optimistic range of 136 to 174. It's not that wide of a bandwidth, honestly. It's just somewhere in there, there's a peak. And then 400 to 520. This does not resonate 400 to 520. It resonates usually closer to like 420. The other thing is antennas that claim they're dual band. Honestly, dual band antennas can exist. They do exist. But most of these antennas, like let's go back to the 771, there's a natural trick that they pull off to claim that it's dual band. So with any antenna, you make a 3/4 length antenna. Here's a perfect example. This is 3/4 length of 70 centimeters. And it's quarter length for 2 meters. But those numbers don't really match up. So 3/4 length 2 meters, or 1/4 length 2 meters, is actually 3/4 length 50 centimeters. 3/4 length 70 centimeters is really 2.8 meters quarter length. So they just kind of like center it a little bit. So it's not the perfect 2 meter, it's not the perfect 70 centimeter. So it's a little too low on the 2 meters and a little too high on the 70 centimeters, but you're still kind of catching the edge of the resonant curve, and it's still a great all-around antenna. Me personally, I like monoband antennas. Monoband antennas are very specifically tuned for one band. These are the Smileys, and they are absolutely amazing antenna. They are 5/8, which is a little controversial to some people because they claim that you need a ground plane. If you're mounting a vertical in the yard that has proper radials and everything, 5/8 is the ideal length. The problem with HTs is you don't have a perfect ground plane. You have your arm and your body, and that's about it. And so usually half wavelength is better. But the Smileys, I've found when I hooked it up to the VNA, they are 5/8 wavelength. And with my VNA, when I test antennas, I do a blend of lightly holding it away from the antenna, which simulates a poor ground plane. And then I put my whole hand behind it and then death grip it, which simulates a good ground plane. And I've found that with the Smileys, for whatever reason, when I lightly hold it without a ground plane, it actually works better than when I death grip it. Hey, there's my face. And so I'm not 100% certain on how loaded bases work. I've only been building antennas for like the past month and looking for them more. But however they loaded this base, it's perfect. So I think HAM... dude, I'm forgetting his name. Ham Radio Crash Course. He tested this one versus the MFJ half wavelength, which Smiley does make half wavelength, but only in the 2 meter. In his case scenario, the 2 meter worked, or the half wavelength 2 meter MFJ worked better than the Smiley, but they were very close. From my experience, I took a half wavelength, one of these, a Breeze, up into the mountains, and then one of these 5/8 wavelength a breeze up into the mountains. And the half wavelength worked better when I had clear line of sight of my friend's house 7 miles away. But as soon as I started getting deeper into the mountains, about 2 miles at a time, the half wavelength didn't work at all. And then the 5/8 just barely came through. So I've been using 5/8 in the mountains as much as possible. But yeah, that's just a brief overview of antennas. In the future, I'm going to be doing reviews on individual antennas or just small groups of antennas on the VNA. Because starting out in ham radio, one of my biggest concerns is, am I really getting what I'm paying for? And when I got the VNA, I started testing everything, and I realized a lot of people are kind of full of shit when it comes to their antennas, especially with GMRS antennas, and I'll get to that later. But yeah, just a brief overview of antennas, and that's it.